It's just kind of who I am. I want to pour into my team as much as possible, and I'm pretty in tune with my body. I can read a room pretty well, and so when I see we're lacking a little bit, you got to step up. But if we're good, you're just there to encourage and give people confidence.
What if I told you that a single rookie's paycheck, a figure approaching an unbelievable $50 million, was enough to spark a civil war in a professional sports league? This isn't just about money or a record-breaking contract. It's about a storm of jealousy, respect, and resentment that has been brewing for years in the quiet, overlooked corners of the WNBA, and it's finally erupting into public, undeniable chaos. The league is at a breaking point, a schism forming between the old guard who built the foundation and the new sensation who is getting all the credit for the finished skyscraper. And the entire controversy, the entire earthquake shaking the foundations of women's basketball, revolves around one name: Caitlin Clark. But the shocking truth behind the veteran outrage, a raw and unfiltered fury led by players like Sophie Cunningham, is far deeper and more personal than anyone on the outside realizes. This isn't just a game anymore. It's a battle for the soul of the league, a fight for history, and a desperate struggle to not be forgotten. The story begins with a number, a figure so colossal it seems almost mythical for a rookie athlete in any sport, let alone the historically underpaid WNBA. Whispers and headlines have swirled around a $50 million deal, a figure so massive it completely dwarfs the career earnings of nearly every other player in the league's history. But the reality is even more complex and, in some ways, more infuriating for the league's veterans who have scraped and clawed for every penny. The most publicized part of Clark's financial empire is her groundbreaking, her earth-shattering deal with Nike, a staggering $28 million contract spread over 8 years. This deal alone is historic, a statement from the world's biggest sportswear brand. It includes her own signature shoe, an honor reserved for only the most elite and marketable athletes on the planet. Think Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant. A rookie getting a signature shoe before playing a single pro game was a move that sent shockwaves through the industry, signaling that Nike wasn't just signing a basketball player. They were investing in a cultural phenomenon. But that was just the opening salvo in a corporate bidding war. Gatorade, the brand synonymous with athletic greatness, jumped in with a multi-year, multi-million-dollar deal. State Farm, whose commercials dominate the airwaves, made her one of their flagship faces alongside Patrick Mahomes. Panini, the sports card giant, signed her to an exclusive memorabilia deal, making her trading cards some of the most sought after in the world. When you tally up all these blue-chip endorsements, the total value is conservatively projected to not just meet, but easily surpass the $50 million mark over their lifetimes, creating a financial titan before she ever scored a single professional point. This isn't just a salary, it's a coronation. It's a declaration from the corporate world that Caitlin Clark, the rookie, is bigger, more valuable, and more important than the league she plays for. And while boardrooms and fans celebrated this new era of marketability, the players who had bled and sweat for years to build the WNBA from the ground up were watching with gritted teeth. They saw this unprecedented, unimaginable wealth not as a victory for the league, but as a personal and professional slap in the face. A silent, bitter storm was brewing, and it was about to be given a loud, unapologetic voice. That voice belonged to Sophie Cunningham. A tough, gritty forward for the Phoenix Mercury, Cunningham has built a career on the kind of hard work and physicality that doesn't make highlight reels but earns the respect of teammates. She is the embodiment of the old guard, a blue-collar player who fought for her spot in the league and prides herself on her toughness. She is not a flashy superstar, but a grinder, an enforcer. So when she was inevitably asked by the media about the new rookie phenom who was dominating every conversation, she didn't mince words or hide behind polite cliches. In what many perceived as a direct and aggressive shot at Clark, Cunningham made it abundantly clear that the veterans were not about to lay down a red carpet for the newcomer. She spoke of the league's intense physicality, directly stating that the college game had not and could not prepare Clark for what was coming. Her tone was not welcoming. It was combative. Her words were sharp and unapologetic, painting a picture of a league of predators ready to test, challenge, and perhaps even break the new Golden Girl who had been handed the world. The media machine, always eager for conflict, immediately framed her comments as a major tantrum, a clear and simple sign of jealousy from a lesser-known player envious of the spotlight. But to dismiss her words as simple envy is to fundamentally misunderstand the culture of the WNBA. Cunningham wasn't just speaking for herself. She was channeling the collective, unspoken frustration of hundreds of players who felt their years of dedication, sacrifice, and struggle were being completely erased by the media's blinding obsession with a single rookie. Her statement was a deliberate warning shot, a flare sent up to signal to Clark and the world that respect in the WNBA is not given out with endorsement deals. It is earned through blood, sweat, and on-court battles. And what happened in the weeks that followed proved that this wasn't an opinion. It was a promise. See, to understand what the media carelessly dismissed as a tantrum, you have to pull back the curtain and look at the brutal, unglamorous reality of being a WNBA player before Caitlin Clark arrived on her corporate-sponsored chariot. For decades, these women have been elite professional athletes in name, but have often lived the lives of struggling artists, fighting for their passion. They flew commercial, a humiliating and physically draining experience for world-class athletes. Imagine a 6'5" center folding herself into a middle seat for a 5-hour flight, only to have to get off and perform at the highest level hours later. Their salaries were so shockingly low that a vast majority of players, including league MVPs and champions, spent their entire off-seasons playing for teams in other countries, Russia, China, to Turkey, enduring grueling schedules and living thousands of miles away from their families just to make a living wage. They weren't just athletes, they were migrant workers. They fought for every column inch in newspapers that were 95% dedicated to men's sports, and for every 30-second spot on highlight shows that would rather show a meaningless baseball game than a WNBA playoff thriller. They built the league brick by brick, with little fanfare, even less pay, and constant, condescending criticism from a public that refused to take them seriously. Then, in what felt like a single moment, Caitlin Clark entered the scene and was handed, on a silver platter, everything they had been fighting for. The massive endorsements that dwarfed their salaries, the non-stop media coverage that made them afterthoughts, to the charter flights that they had begged for years, it all materialized overnight for a player who hadn't proven a single thing on the professional stage. So when Sophie Cunningham spoke out, it wasn't just about Clark's talent or her fame. It was a visceral reaction to the deep-seated, painful injustice of it all. It was the raw, unfiltered frustration of watching a newcomer receive the glory for a house she didn't build, while the architects of that house were being pushed into the background, treated like yesterday's news. It was a primal scream for recognition, a desperate plea to the world. Remember us. We were here first. We made this possible. This feeling of being overlooked, of being made invisible in your own home, was the real fuel for the fire that was now threatening to burn the whole league down. Sophie Cunningham may have been the one to light the match, but the entire league was a powder keg of resentment, just waiting for a spark. Her sentiments were not an isolated incident from a jealous player. They were a chillingly accurate reflection of a league-wide consensus among the veterans. Before Clark even played her first preseason game, WNBA legend Diana Taurasi, Cunningham's own teammate and arguably the greatest player of all time, went on national television and delivered a prophetic warning that has since become infamous. Reality is coming. She spoke about how the college game is a fantasy world compared to the pros, where grown women, faster, stronger, and smarter, will exploit every weakness. It was a direct, undisguised message that Clark's record-breaking college career meant absolutely nothing in this new arena. But the warnings quickly escalated from verbal jabs to outright physical assaults. In a game against the Chicago Sky, player Chennedy Carter delivered a blindsided hip check to Clark while she was waiting for an inbound pass. A cheap shot so egregious it sent shockwaves through the entire sports world. It was a flagrant foul, a blatant act of aggression that had nothing to do with basketball and everything to do with sending a message. Carter later offered no apology, admitting the attack was personal, fueled by her anger at the narrative that Clark was the only reason people were suddenly watching. The camera caught her teammate Angel Reese jumping off the bench to applaud the foul, a visual confirmation of the ugly sentiment. And this single act of on-court aggression exposed the uncomfortable truth. A significant portion of the league's veterans resented Clark's fame so intensely that they were willing to use physical intimidation as a weapon. Suddenly, Cunningham's words no longer sounded like a tantrum. They sounded like the verbal expression of a physical war being waged on the court. A coordinated campaign to welcome the rookie, not with open arms, but with bruises. The most maddeningly ironic part of this entire conflict is the undeniable, transformative power of what has been dubbed the Caitlin Clark effect. Her arrival has been nothing short of an economic miracle for the WNBA. Arenas are selling out across the country, not just for her home games in Indiana, but for every city she visits, and with opposing teams moving their games to larger NBA arenas just to handle the unprecedented ticket demand. Television ratings have shattered all previous records, with viewership numbers skyrocketing by over 200% on some networks. Indiana Fever games are now routinely drawing more viewers than established men's sports, including Major League Baseball and the NHL. This incredible surge in popularity has had tangible, life-changing benefits for every single player in the league, including the very ones who openly resent her. The league, long resistant to the high cost, finally caved under the new revenue and media pressure and agreed to implement full-time charter flights for all teams, a luxury the veterans had been demanding for over a decade. More viewers mean more TV money, which means more league revenue, which will inevitably lead to higher salaries, better facilities, and bigger endorsement opportunities for everyone. In essence, Clark is the rising tide that is lifting all boats. But this is a painful, double-edged sword. While the financial benefits are clear and celebrated, the cultural cost has been the near-total erasure of every other star in the league. The media's coverage has become almost exclusively about Clark. Every pre-game show, every post-game analysis, every social media debate revolves around her performance, her struggles, her impact. Established superstars and reigning league MVPs like Aja Wilson and Brianna Stewart are being relegated to supporting characters in their own league's narrative, often being asked more questions about Clark in interviews than about their own dominant performances. And this creates a deeply toxic and psychologically draining environment where players are benefiting financially from Clark's presence while simultaneously growing to resent the massive shadow she casts over their own hard-won careers and accomplishments. They are getting richer, but they are also becoming invisible. This deep-seated resentment hasn't just stayed in the locker rooms or in cryptic interview clips. It has spilled onto the hardwood in the most brutal and physical way imaginable. Caitlin Clark is being systematically targeted. From the moment she steps on the court, she is subjected to a level of physicality that goes far beyond the typical "welcome to the league" treatment reserved for rookies. It is calculated and relentless. The Chennedy Carter hip check was the most blatant example, but it's happening in nearly every single game, in ways both subtle and overt. She's being hammered on drives to the basket, bodied aggressively 30 feet from the ball, and hit with bone-jarring screens that are clearly designed to punish her, not to free up a teammate. Defenders are grabbing her jersey, holding her arm, and shoving her on a level that commentators with decades of experience have called unprecedented. What's even more telling, and arguably more sinister, is how these plays are being officiated. The referees, whether by unconscious bias or an unspoken league mandate to let the veterans police their own, seem to be letting a shocking amount of this contact go uncalled. This no-call culture effectively gives a green light to her opponents to be as physical and aggressive as possible without any consequence. Boy, this isn't just a defensive strategy to stop a talented scorer. It's a clear and coordinated campaign of physical intimidation. The veterans are using the thin veil of tough defense to deliver a physical message that their words alone could not convey. They are trying to prove, through force, that Clark, the media darling with the perfect narrative, cannot handle the grit and grind of the professional game they have long dominated. Every bump, every shove, every uncalled foul is a statement. Every bruise is a message. To truly grasp the raw, exposed nerve that Clark's astronomical endorsement money has touched, you have to look at the jaw-dropping, almost obscene disparity between her off-court earnings and her official WNBA salary. As the #1 draft pick, Caitlin Clark's rookie contract pays her approximately $76,000 a year. Let that sink in for a moment. $76,000. That is less than what many first-year teachers or firefighters make. Meanwhile, her Nike deal alone pays her an average of $3.5 million per year. This means that for every $1 Clark earns from actually playing basketball, she earns nearly $50 from her sponsors. Her total endorsement income is estimated to be over 500 times her playing salary. Now, compare this to the veterans who are laying down the physical punishment. Sophie Cunningham, after 5 hard-fought years in the league, makes a respectable but hardly life-changing salary of around $150,000. Even the league's absolute top-tier superstars, of the MVPs and champions on maximum contracts, cap out at around $250,000 per year. This means that Caitlin Clark, the rookie, is earning more from a single Gatorade campaign than the league's most decorated veterans earn in an entire season of grueling, physically demanding world-class work. This isn't just a pay gap, it's a different financial stratosphere. This is the molten core of the entire conflict. The veterans' frustration isn't about Clark's paltry $76,000 salary. It's about the brutal, market-driven reality that her fame and her brand have made their on-court performance, their years of experience, their championships, and their leadership feel utterly and completely worthless in comparison. It is a terrifying validation of the idea that in the new era of the WNBA, your narrative is infinitely more valuable than your game. This intense, bitter clash between Caitlin Clark and the league's established veterans is far more than just a passing controversy or a simple story of rookie hazing. It is a defining, pivotal moment for the WNBA, a crucible that will either forge it into a stronger, more resilient, and more equitable league, or expose the deep-seated fractures that could tear it apart from the inside. The conflict lays bare the painful, awkward, and often ugly transition from a niche sport fighting for its very survival to a mainstream powerhouse grappling with the complex and corrupting forces of fame, money, and media saturation. The veterans' resentment, while often expressed through harsh words and physical aggression, is born from a legitimate and heartbreaking fear of being left behind and forgotten by the very league they poured their lives into building. Clark, on the other hand, represents a future so bright and so lucrative that it threatens to blind everyone to the league's past sacrifices. The ultimate question is not whether Clark can survive the physical onslaught or whether the veterans will ever truly accept her. The real billion-dollar question is whether the WNBA itself can manage this explosive, unprecedented growth without imploding. Will this internal war over respect, money, and recognition ultimately poison the locker rooms and alienate the millions of new fans it desperately needs to retain? Or is this the brutal, necessary friction required to polish a diamond in the rough? Forcing the league to finally reckon with its own identity and step into its long-awaited, hard-earned place in the global spotlight? The battle for the soul of the WNBA is being fought right now, on and off the court, and its outcome will define the future of women's sports for a generation to come.